the PodBarber. Coming up on today's show.
I had created destruction down every path. I got very, very paranoid. I was completely wasted and so shaken up by it. The anxiety was through the roof. The paranoia was going. My mental health had completely gone. I was wasted as it was. I passed out and I had no faith whatsoever before this. And I felt like my soul had just sunk into this deep, dark pit. It was in pitch blackness. This was going faster and faster and faster. And then I just called on God's name. I screamed because it was like being in an elevator with no speed limit. And I screamed on God's name and that stopped. And I just heard the words, Abba Father, teach the lessons, and God in a soft whispery voice.
You're listening to the PodBarber. I'm taking conversations from my barber's chair deeper, further, and I'm championing the chat. Men's health and well-being takes centre stage. With help from my guests sharing knowledge and experience, stories from their quests, we tackle the taboos. We're all learning together. It's emotional. We're just dudes. So feel the positive vibes we're sending out to you. It's simple. Join my tribe, subscribe to the PodBarber. You, my friends, are not alone. Who's next, please? Well, I'll tell you who. We have Neil Thacker, the scaffolder, here with us today. An inspirational man whose story descends from death, lies, drugs, alcohol, misadventure, absolute crisis, all the way to his material body failing him. And as he lay in hospital, scrapping for his life, the flame inside him fading, a light appeared of hope. And he followed it. Like I said, an inspirational man. My first sentence from the statement, and it's the mention of inspirational where I will start to paint this picture. It's always the most important piece of the puzzle. Neil is a new man, a renewed man, a complete father, husband, and facilitator to his faith. And I must say that his story is one which has it all and leads to the most blessed of endings. He's come such a long way. His voice is here to help others, as do all of the guests whom share their quests. So I, for one, am celebrating having him here today. Sit back, this man sure to nourish your ear and whisper some words of hope. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for a wonderful introduction. Thanks for having me, Nick.
No worries. As I let you know that I like to write a poem for all my guests. So here's your one, Neil. Neil Thacker, the man that was once dead. You listen to the voice of God within your head. What's it like to be so manic, to then find God upon this planet? He whispered wisdom and life back to you. And with this infinite connection, what will you do? Because you and your family now have a new chance, since you've left the life which regressed your advance. So I'm intrigued to understand this renewed man. I want to share your vision, your new plan, because without faith and confidence, we stay with our crisis immersed in silence. Guided, not misguided, you've returned to us. And for the sake of your world, that's such a plus. So the man that was once dead, release that story from within your head.
Wow, that was very touching, mate. Thanks.
It's kind of a heavy poem, that one.
That really is. It's incredible.
We've had some really good chats, haven't we, in the build-up to this. And I feel like that's probably one of the most important ones that I've written because it's such a big story, and it really is. And I'm super grateful you're here. Let's kick on and just ask you how you've been coping this last year, man. It's been a bit of a mad one.
So this last year, yeah, it's been mad for everyone. But to be honest, we've taken lots and lots of positives out of this COVID situation, especially through recovery. So I've been spending a lot of time at home with the family, which has given us some time to go back to old ways of living, you know, home cooked meals, round the table together, some quality family time. So I've taken loads of positives out of the last year, which has been really encouraging for not just me, but the whole family, really. So
I think there's that little sense of almost guilt, like it's actually been really good. Like the sense of having that togetherness and that time to hang out. I mean, we're so lucky. Both of us have got 3 kids. You can't get bored at home, can you?
With 3 kids, as you know, the clubs and stuff that they do, it's just manic after school every night and then at weekends as well. So to have that downtime of just some quality time has been really, really awesome for us.
Before we get right into this, just explain the type of guy that you would have considered yourself before. If you were reflecting before this, you know, this last 20 months has happened, who were you?
So I always had kind of 2 sides to me. I've always had a nice soft heart, but I've always been easily led and easily swayed. I've never really understood boundaries very well. So I've always tested boundaries, but yeah, I've never really understood boundaries. I've never listened to anyone who's given me good wisdom. I've never listened to good advice. And I've always wanted to learn myself, whether that's the right way or the wrong way. I'd always find out the hard way, which obviously was bad in the end, but I'd never take advice from anyone.
So a bit of a sort of a lone ranger, a nice dude, but could get yourself easily caught up with probably a lot of bad influence, stimulants that are around us at all times. But generally, a good soft heart, you mentioned. So
I had a good soft heart. I was overtaken. I feel like when drink was introduced, and that was at a young age, with any kind of addiction, it gets progressively worse. So as I was drinking more, the good side and the good heart was slowly diminishing, and I was being overtaken, and the bad side, the selfish side, was starting to become more powerful and prominent in my life, which is it's just destroyed and caused so much destruction, really.
So now, before we hit the middle bit, I think it's kind of important to say, so what kind of guy do you consider yourself now? Like your immediate family, are they in a better place? Have they got a better person in their lives?
Yeah, so my family, I believe they'd say that they're really proud of me, just because I'm there. I say what I do what I'm going to say, and I'm screwing this up.
No, you're not. You're fine. Don't. You're fine. It's cool.
It's annoying because I feel like I'm answering the questions badly because I'm nervous. But
take a breath.
Yeah, I know.
Zen. So I'm a breather, right? So and we're just remembering that what we're here to do is to deliver a conversation, confident in our conversation. And I think the most important thing is you're that little bit of doubt, that little negative narrative that's hanging around in there. We need to exercise that demon today, because that's what's going to keep you coming back, because you're going to get caught onto that passage. You answer these questions as you feel fit, with freedom to speak as you feel you want to. I'm here to support you, to allow people listening. This is how someone can change. And if you are unpolished and you scrub it, just repeat it again. Just say, do you know what? I want to answer that again. And if I step on your toe, I'm going to say, sorry, man.
So I can just talk through, and then you can
just talk through, and I'm focused on you. You focus on me.
Yeah.
We're focusing on what we're trying to do to benefit other people.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important thing. Do you want me to go back to that one question?
Yeah, let's do it.
So Neil, just to paint that picture of where you're at now, what would your family, the close friends, what would you say and describe yourself now after the 20 months experience?
So I think my close family and friends would be incredibly proud of me and the change in direction of my life, that I've been completely committed to. Just getting rid of all the old. And it's with addiction and cutting out drinking, it's not just the drinking that you're cutting out. It's so much more than that. There's certain people in your life that you're cutting out. There's routines in your life that you're cutting out. There's so much to it than just stopping drinking. So they'll be really proud with my achievements, I think, over the last 20 months.
Funnily enough, I know some of these people quite well, and do you know when you can sense someone smiling from within? I would say that I see that, and I see that in your community around you. So we've got a bit of a before and after. It's like one of my haircuts. So let's remember that Neil's here to try to inspire you, share his experience in the hope that his conversation becomes the cure and the start of healing for others. And I truly believe that he has been intercepted and given a new lease of life. And you're here today, that it's due to a divine intervention, people. Sometimes we don't understand or can calculate, but why not believe in the fact that there's something far bigger about this world and all in it? And why should we have to justify it with our own calculations? Why not just have a little bit of faith in a brother or a sister? Have a little listen and just be open-minded. So let's get to the groove of this now, dude. Where did this pinnacle of crisis hit the edge for you? What happened?
Right at the very end, back in August 2019, I was at the end. I thought there was no way out. And it was so dark. It was so dark back then. I remember, quite vividly now, on the floor in my bedroom, just bawling my eyes out, thinking, where has it all gone wrong? Where is that lad, that good lad, where's he gone? And when you drink quite a lot, you suffer from blackouts. And I was receiving phone calls right towards the end, and where I couldn't remember what had happened, people were filling me in on stuff that I did or stuff that I couldn't remember. And my anxiety, which I've always suffered with, was through the roof. It was every call or message I received was, what am I going to find out now? Like, you know, sometimes you'd wake up and you'd be like, I can't remember what happened last night. And I just remember sitting on my bedroom floor, just bawling my eyes out and just being like, there is no way out for me. I painted a picture of myself of being this person that I always wanted to be, but I wasn't. I was in horrendous amounts of debt, which I hadn't told my wife about. I was an alcoholic. I was substance abuse. I had ruined the relationship with my boss through lies. I had created destruction down pretty much every path you can imagine in life. And it was in August. I was drinking. I was on a mad session. I was walking down the road. I got very, very paranoid. And I remember someone rang the police. And the police actually picked me up on the side of the road because they thought I was going to jump in front of a car. I was sitting on the curb. I was completely wasted. And they handcuffed me and they were saying, let's just try and calm him down, because I was having a fit at the time. I was completely out of control. The air ambulance had to come because I was so shaken up by it. The anxiety was through the roof. Paranoia was going. My mental health had completely gone. I was wasted as it was. And they injected me with something to try and calm me down. So after a big struggle, I passed out, and I had no faith whatsoever before this. And I felt like my soul had just sunk into this deep, dark pit. It was in pitch darkness. And the speed in which my soul was going, there was no limit. So I can only ever relate to anything that's got a limit, whether it's a car going 100 mile an hour or a train or whatever. This had no limit. This was going faster and faster and faster and wasn't stopping. And thinking back, it's actually quite scary. And at the time, I knew I was so out of my depth. I still had all of the non-physical emotions. So the anxiety, you know, when you go over a speed bump and you can feel that little jiggle. I felt all of these emotions, and you could feel the speed of going fast, and you had the fear. The feeling of fear was right there. And it just kept going down and down and down, faster and faster and faster. And then I just called on God's name. And when I called, I screamed, because it was like being in an elevator with no speed limit, going down a shaft as fast as possible. And I screamed on God's name, and that stopped. And I just heard the words, Abba Father, which I didn't know what that meant, teach the lessons, and God, in a soft, whispery voice. Yeah, and then I woke up in hospital shortly after that. The police officers were still beside me because they took me into hospital. They were fantastic, and the NHS was fantastic, and they were there, and they said, look, you know, we're not arresting you or anything. We're just making sure that you're okay. You were a complete mess last night. And when I woke up in hospital, I was in resus because I'd been resuscitated. I had doctors working on me for a long period of time. My wife came into the hospital. This was early hours of the morning now. And when she came into the hospital, the old me that continued to lie was still there. I was still half drunk. So I continued the lying path. One of the things I know now, that I wasn't coming out of hospital being the old person. That wasn't going to happen. I either wasn't coming out of there, or I was coming out of there a new person. And where I continued to lie to my wife about, you know, how I was there, I was kind of playing on, I only had a couple of drinks, it's nothing major, trying to cool down the situation like I always did. Things started to get worse for me. I got moved to an isolated unit, and I stayed in hospital for 8 days. But my scores were through the roof. My kidneys were shutting down, my liver shutting down, I had a heart attack. The levels were so high, and they were rising. It was so scary. So the first 24 hours were just having a bit of reflective time of like, okay. But then I went into a real struggle mentally. Like, I think there was an element of psychosis in there. I think there was an element of paranoia, of dread, of real fear. I didn't want to be there. I was so scared. Then this woman from the chaplaincy of the hospital came to see me. And I didn't know this person at all. And when she walked into the hospital bed, she sat down beside me. She had this aura around her, this presence. And I didn't want this person to go. I didn't want her to leave at all. And at the time, the doctors were really worried. I was on 24-hour care. They were really, really concerned about whether I was going to survive or not. It was that bad. And this woman said, do you want to write letters to your family? Whatever you want to say to them, now's the time to say it, basically. And I've still got those letters now. But she kind of looked me in the eye and she said, I can see God in you. And it really touched me. So I was speaking to Alice about this, and Alice's family, they're Christians, and Alice's mum goes to a church in Linton. So I spoke to her and she said, would you like the pastor of Linton Free Church, a guy called Chris, he's a fantastic guy. Would you like to speak to him? Now Chris is such a wonderful, wonderful guy. He was actually on a family weekend away at a Christian retreat, and he left that holiday, which was in the UK, to come to sit with me. He didn't know me, to sit by my hospital bed. And when he came, I felt a real sense of warmth, and I just felt a real energy and a real connection with him. And we were talking for a bit, and he said to me, do you want to accept Jesus as your saviour? And it was like somebody giving me a key. You know, where I said before, where I felt like there was no way out. Mm-hmm. I felt like he was just saying, here's the key if you want to get out of here. And it's quite emotional actually. We said a prayer together, and from that day really, I felt the ability to be really, really honest. So my wife's sister actually came in, Hannah, she came in to stay with me that night because I was so petrified, and had various family members in. I had about probably 6 of the 8 days completely just a mess, crying non-stop, an overwhelming sense of where I failed.
It's okay, man.
But when I accepted the Lord, sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. You're doing brilliant. Just as an interim, I would just like to just say that I also know Chris. And as you mentioned his name, I pumped my heart because I sat next to him with my watching our kids do their swimming lessons. Me and him connected so much. And I even watched an online Linton Free Church Sunday session back through the heavy parts of lockdown because I wanted to hear his voice. So you've got Neil and Chris helping Neil, and you got to that point where things were tough, and you've done 6 days of this incredible, horrific. It's a come down, but also that journey, that sort of through the wormhole, hearing all this stuff coming to you. Man, it's a lot to take on when you're in that transitional period. But these auras, these, in some religions, chakras, meridians, these powerful energy sources came in the sense of people who wanted to help you and give you and guide you as you needed to be. You were reaching out to them. You weren't coming out of that place. So you want to crack on where you left off when you're ready, man.
Yeah. And I believe God puts the right people in your path at the right times. And, you know, Chris was a publican. So he worked in a pub for many years before he was a priest. And he knew my background well. He was a big Liverpool fan. You know, I don't begrudge him for that.
You can't. He's such a nice dude. But yeah, I still beat him at fantasy football. I will like to add that.
But yeah, when I accepted the Lord and we said a prayer together, I had a real strength to be honest about everything. As I said, I felt this overwhelming sense of, okay, these are your failings. Now you need to start being honest and open about who you are. So yeah, my wife and I had long discussions. My boss and I had long discussions. My mum, my in-laws, you know, my sister-in-laws. We were all just talking about everything, and debt and the mess and the lies and that went on for, as I say, 6 of the 8 days. It was an upsetting time. But when I come out of hospital, I felt like the challenge had just begun, really, because I'm now looking up a mountain. I've come out of hospital. I've got 2 options. Do I continue to climb this, which is going to be a day-by-day progression, or do I quit and turn back to the old ways which have ended me up here? And by mountain, I mean So all those paths of destruction I was talking about, I was in a horrific amount of debt. I didn't know if I had a job to pay back that debt. My relationship was on the line. I was an alcoholic, substance abuse. I had so many things that I didn't even know where to start. And that's the strength that God's given me. And I believe that I had to accept God. I was a weak person. I was a weak person because I found myself in that situation. As I said earlier, I was easily led, no boundaries. I didn't take ownership of that and stand up for that. I was very weak. But when I accepted Jesus, I had a strength that's growing daily now. And there's a saying I heard once that you can't exhaust God's resources. And when you think about that, I mean, humans they exhaust at some point. You get tired, you need to sleep. But you can't exhaust God's resources. So the more strength you're needed or required at any point, you can call on God at any time. And that saying's massive for me. Massive, because at any point, any low point in my life, I just call on God again, and He's there every time. And I feel bad that all the decisions I've made, and even till the very end when I was just about to die, He's still there saying, come on, let's go, Neil.
Do you know what, man? That in itself is like an incredible story of how somebody can find their faith in the absolute worst of situations. What you've described, the vulnerability that you felt, it seems to me that you had to endure those horrendous things that happened to you. And arguably you could say that maybe some people just have to learn that way. And maybe to gain the bit of you that we all need, you needed that. You needed that kicking. And you fully gave it to yourself, man. I mean, on every level, you needed all of it to teach you the lesson that you needed to learn. And picking up on you saying you felt so guilty and, previously I never was able to take that path. I think that a lot of people feel like that because there's that negative narrative that runs in, that little bit of self-doubt. And I think if we start listening to the positive, and in this case, that warm, welcoming hand of, come back here, man. We don't want you going down that wormhole, son. You've gone enough. You've seen enough. It was like you had to purge that sense of depression from you, that sense of anxiety. You had to purge that. You had to fill yourself up to fully purge it, to then be able to fill back with the right stuff. And if you didn't do that, maybe it would take you a long time to accumulate all that right stuff. But it sounds to me like you've got a great family. You've got a great pastor. You've got a great network. And actually most people do have that at reach if they're willing to put a hand out. And the hand's there. I'm kind of shocked to sort of, when you sit there and listen to that as well, it's shocking to see someone go through that and to be able to then relive that. Because I think most people sit there and think, oh, wow, what does happen? Well, that's what happened to you. And that was your experience of it. I mean, I sit there and I think, I used to know Neil, but did I know Neil? Did anyone in the community, did anyone in the family, extended family, did they see that in you? I didn't see this in you, Neil. You're a bloody good-looking bloke. I saw you up until that point. I didn't notice, mate. Why didn't I notice that?
To be honest, it was all part of, with my addiction. And, I made so many mistakes. I've told so many lies. I did not deserve the love and the grace of God at all. But with the addiction, you cover it up. You don't want people to get too close because they'll know by the signs that you've got an issue. And I was so worried about people knowing that I would rather cover it up than let anyone know. So even my wife obviously knew that I had a drink problem. I was going to AA towards 2018. I was going to AA. I owned up that I had a problem with drink, but I never told her the extent of the debt because I was always hopeful that I'd recover it somehow. If I'm honest, I've always kept everyone, even my own family, if I'm honest, at arm's length because I was so worried about people knowing my insecurities. And I wanted to paint that picture of being Mr. Perfect. For some reason, I had that in my mind to keep the image. I don't know why. I don't know where that's even come from. but I couldn't show any signs of weakness. I didn't want to show a chink in the armour. I just wanted everything to be rosy. But inside I was eating myself up. And a lot of it I caused myself, I must admit. You know, I'm not sitting here saying I'm perfect. As I say, I didn't deserve the grace and love of God. I did not deserve my wife sticking by me the way she has, my family, the in-laws, my mum, and, you know, I didn't deserve that. I'm just so thankful.
I've got to butt in, and I've done well not to. You did deserve it. Because a life without you was not the life that they were looking for. As far as I'm concerned, everyone deserves forgiveness and a second chance, and a third chance and a fourth chance if that's what it needs. Because some people are going to have to go through it the harder way. But you're not a bad bloke forever. You can have a bad section in your life, but we can live for 90 or 100 years, or in my case maybe 120, as I so like to say. So there's plenty of time to make up for that and to pay that forward heavily. And they wouldn't want you not here. They would do everything, and especially to be returned and to be working towards and to be practicing and progressing in this new renewed man. You know, that's magic. There's something more than we understand, I think. And I think that's the story here. I think there's something, you kind of don't need to question that.
No.
You just need to roll with that.
Do you know what? What I've learned, so obviously that happened to me when I was 34. What gives me some courage and hope is that I've learned a lot of lessons. You know, I'm 35 now, shortly to be 36. I've learned a lot of lessons. I don't drink anymore. I feel completely freed from that. I felt like I was in spiritual chains before, that I couldn't free myself. As I said, I felt like there was no way out whatsoever. It says in the Bible about if the Son sets you free, you are free indeed, the Son of God. And I feel free. I feel like I've learned so much in those 34 years of doing it my way. You know, the way of, the hard way to learn, not listen to wisdom, not listen to good advice from people that have been there. I always wanted to reinvent the wheel. And now I've got that foundation of honesty, trust. My faith is just so strong. And my family, my network just gives me so much hope for the future. My boss has been incredible as well. Not only after I told him about some of the lies, because obviously when I was getting promotion after promotion after promotion, I became a director. I've been at this job for 17 years now and worked my way up through the business. But I was telling him so many lies. And in the hospital, I was pretty blunt with him. This is what's been happening. You know, I've been going to the pub at lunchtimes. I've been saying to you I'm at meetings and I'm not. And then about a month after that, we had another discussion about other stuff that I was telling him. And I was in horrific amount of debt. And I turned to him and I said, I need some help to clear some of this debt, basically, because I was underwater at the time. And there's a saying in the Bible, actually, that says if somebody slaps you out in the cheek, you turn the other and offer them the other cheek as well. And I feel like he did that. I've told him everything. He's still employed me, and then he's loaned me money to get out of debt. I mean, it's just incredible, really.
Solid man. I think the honesty that you eventually showed was more than enough, clearly. And that reached out to them, and there was something in each of any one of these people that, you know, they must be working under the same guys, man. They've all got that bit of energy, and they wanted to pour back into you. It's like, I remember when we were first becoming parents, I read about the waterfall effect, and I thought it was beautiful. And the idea is that as we create a life, the mother obviously physically has to give part of her own self, her own material body. She pours into the creation of that little miracle. We're all miracles. So it's up to the father, the parents, the family, but particularly the father to pour into that lady so that she's got the energy, so she's being topped up. And then I require it as the dad to be poured into, and so on, and so on. And if we do pour a little bit in, and someone's pouring a little bit into us in return, we've found a continuum, like a linear generosity. And that really stuck with me, and that's exactly the same type of case here. It takes a village to raise a baby. Well, you were reborn.
Yeah, I think my wife in particular, for the last 20 months, I've appreciated and I've noticed some qualities that I never realised before. She's such an incredibly, incredibly strong and loyal person. And I actually gain a lot of strength from her as well now. Whereas before I was, trying to be the, I'm the breadwinner, I'm the, I've got care of this, but I've got hold of this, but I didn't have. We just work so much better as a partnership now. And she's just been incredible, to be honest, throughout the whole thing.
Kindness is free.
So with me and just my own personal situation was, as a man, I always felt it was a bit of a weakness to be open and honest about insecurities. I think over the last 20 months where I've been open and honest, I've actually formed better friendships. Or my friends that were there, always there in the background, but I've always kept them at arm's length. I feel like being raw and honest with them creates such a better friendship. And I think I neglected friendship because of my own insecurities about being honest. I felt too macho just to be open and honest about situations and circumstances and things that have gone wrong. But ultimately, nobody's perfect, and there's hope for everyone. I mean, if you've got a pulse, you've got a purpose, right? Everyone makes mistakes, and there is forgiveness, and there is love, and there's hope for everyone. But a fundamental flaw of it is honesty.
It's been allowed and encouraged in the space to share as well, and you sort of tapped onto the image, that vision that we are trying to promote of ourselves. It's surface only, isn't it? Mm. And inside we could be cracking, because there's so much pressure put on that. You've got to be the captain of the football team, you've got to be everything, haven't you, in this day and age, or it's seemingly so, and it doesn't seem that just being good and honest is enough, but actually it is, and it's so great to have vulnerability and to open that chat with people, because actually sometimes easier one-to-one to start with, but once you do, you realise that how much that makes a benefit to you to share. It builds the confidence in how that you then can approach your own sort of self-doubts and give yourself that bit of confidence in your conversation, and it's two-way street. It was so apparent to you, wasn't it? That connection with faith, with this idea that there was something better, and you'd been called to arms, basically, and you've got all these people, you don't want to let them down again, in a sense of a renewed human being. And you haven't, have you? You've smashed it, Neil.
Well, as I say, yeah, thanks. It's work in progress, and you take each day as it comes. But the odds were stacked heavily against me to recover from this, heavily. But there's a passage in the Bible, I know this off by heart because I love it so much, where Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and tired, and I'll give you rest." And that's how I felt. I was so tired of it all. I was exhausted with the lying, what I've said, what I've not said. I was drunk, the blackouts, the people filling you in on stuff. By the end of it, I was just so exhausted. And he says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and tired, and I'll give you rest." And I have so much rest for my soul now. So much. And this isn't just available to myself. This is available to everyone.
I mean, if that doesn't make you feel a bit warm and fuzzy, then what will? It does, actually, doesn't it? To hear that, just that, and the importance and what that's done for you and so many different folk. I mean, if we sit there and really think, what are we doing that's good? Are we chasing our tail with lies? Are we trying to promote ourselves? Are we putting a filter on ourselves? It's so common now to airbrush. I prefer no filter. You embody the fact that you've taken that to the absolute tipping point. You needed that. You couldn't just say, "Do you know what? I am fed up of this burden." But some people perhaps don't need to end up in a hospital bed. They may only have one of the stimulants that you suffered. You had the whole caboodle, didn't you? It was the five-a-side football team with a secondary team waiting to take over. You got the whole lot in the pocket. To then unlock that and to walk out, to know that you're on that different pathway. How do you, because you can collate this now, you can actually sort of completely sober, your physical ailments that were created, your organ failure, dying, all of those things that got in the way of a good life, they're now done.
Yeah.
You look good, As you're saying this, and it's been emotional, obviously to tell the tale, and I'm sure that it's not been the only time, but how with oversight now can you feel about that moment when he or she spoke to you? How does that feel to have that?
You have so much comfort, firstly. But when I was in the hospital bed, I was so desperate for time. So when I was told, okay, write these death notes out, write these notes, and just, okay, tell them what you want to say, all I could think about was, this can't be it. I'm 34 years old. This can't be the end, surely. But I was so desperate for time. Like, I need to put this right. Please give me one shot just to put this right. And I just feel, for the future, I feel incredible. I feel like I can't wait now to properly get going in life. I think there are amazing things on the horizon now that are going to be awesome, not just for me personally, but for my family, for my business, which is improving daily, and for everyone around me to see the fruits of the joy and the happiness with all the darkness behind us now, just looking and walking to the light. It just brings so much encouragement.
Mm. And what about the surrounding community as well? Because we can either choose to walk the path of shame. We've all done it on a bendy night, haven't we? Come back with the remorse of what we've bloody done to ourselves, and probably others with the lies. We've all got little bits of this. This is very relatable, Neil. Like, no one's guilt-free. You normally have to get somewhere to want to get away from it. And I'm included in that. So you're now walking the path. Is everyone doffing their cap at you, celebrating this new man, or do you still get the sense that there are the doubters and the naysayers and all of those people that still would rather reap the blow of negativity time and time again? It's no bloody good, is it? It's no good for them. Don't make them feel any better, does it? Doesn't make you feel any better. But are you able to now just push that aside?
So I was terrible before for worrying about what everyone thought. I was really bad for it. I've got to have this image right. Got to say everything right. So you couldn't, the chink in the armour again, you couldn't keep the image right. There will be people that are negative. There'll be people that are sceptical. But as I say, everything I'm saying today is based on an encounter, and it's based on reality and my life that I'm living now. There are people, that are going to be negative about it. There are people that are going to home in on the addiction, the bad sides, the deceit. But, the church community have been fantastic. The people around me that always saw the good heart. And even if there was a tiny sliver left, they always held on to that hope in me. And it's all about the positive side. And it's too easy to dwell on the dark side. It's too easy to dwell on negativity. This isn't a testimony of me, but of what Jesus has done for me. If people can't be inspired by that, then I don't know what will inspire them. I can't bring myself into a negative place because they don't want to be positive for a positive reaction.
I think like commune, faith, positive behaviours, daily practices, philosophy, positive ideology, these things that mark our day-to-day, and then we can go and be scaffolders, we can go and be barbers, we can go and be policemen, we can go and be butchers, we can go and be bankers, professors, nurses, carers. It doesn't really matter what you go and be, but if you have a good practice and a good sense of waking up in the day with that little bit of joy, bushy-tailed, bright-eyed, it's going to help you out, isn't it? And that's a harder addiction, but once you're on that kind of juice, you ain't putting another thing in your glass, man. That's how I feel about these kind of things. And, I'm not nil by mouth of anything. In fact, quite the opposite. But I like it fresh, I like it organic and well-sourced. But it's whatever floats your boat, isn't it? But if your boat was sinking, or if your boat is sinking, throw out a life jacket, dive into that and swim ashore, because there's a load of people that can help you out. And it could be in any sort of format, couldn't it? It could be Linton Free Church. It could be just going and having a haircut with someone that will want to listen to you and let you have the space to talk. It could be going down the pub, and it could be just reaching out. If someone asks you, "Are you all right, man?" "Oh, yeah, I'm fine." "Well, you're not behaving so, well, I'm a little bit concerned. Are you sure you're all right?" You've got to let that little bit of silence happen, people. Because when that silence happens, that gives someone an opportunity to say, "Do you know what, actually, man, I'm not." Would that have helped you if you'd have had more people interrupting you? Do you think if we got to you earlier and if we had a bit more courage to get into that filtered version of you, do you think you would have been able to open up? Deep down inside, do you think you would have been able to be vulnerable at that time and accept that simple conversation from just a human-to-human kindness?
If I'm honest, probably not. Probably not. I was in such a dark place, but I didn't want to open up about my own failings. And there were many people that tried to talk to me. I had various friends that were, we know something's going wrong. We've heard from Alice. We've spoken to Alice on the phone. She's upset. Come on, let's just talk. What's going wrong? Let's go for a walk. I had many people but again, I kept everyone at arm's length. I was so afraid of what people would think. That had hold of me. The fear had hold of me more than what I thought could be a positive side of telling someone.
Did you think at times, I just want to purge myself of this shit. I want to phone someone that maybe I don't know. Were you aware of various charities that are set up to listen? There's a lot more press around these types of things. That was available to you.
I guess I did. And I started going to AA for a little while, and I could relate to a lot of stories in AA. I had some counselling. And one of the things I still remember now is this woman said to me, if you imagine yourself as a water butt with no valve to release it, and everything you're filling in from the top, so you're filling in your anxiety, you're filling in debt, you're filling in relationship problems, all this water butt is just filling and filling and filling. But you're not releasing it because you're not talking to anyone about it. You're not being open and honest about what's going on. So there is no release valve. So all the water butt's doing is just slowly filling up until it's at the point of limit and then just bursts. And I got told that probably about a year before it all come crashing down. But even at that stage, I wouldn't own up to my own failings.
I did the 12th man training, and that you just reminded me of part of the course, and it talks about the stress container and how it could be debt, it could be bereavement, it could be self-inflicted stuff, but it could also be your friends, your family. Perhaps you're taking on too much in the sense of trying to help too much. So you need to have that release valve, and that comes in the form of many things. It could be exercise, it could be prayer, it could be positive peer groups, it could be simply having a chat, championing the chat.
Yeah.
Simple as that, isn't it? Building a little structure around that facility of sharing. I suppose what I'm trying to say is, if you feel that your stress container is topping up, like Niels has done, and you're relating to that, or that someone else is relating to that, I think asking them like more than once, and even texting them, messaging them, emailing them. And if you can't get through one-to-one, go round them and go to their family and say, I'm noticing something. Because I think people would care more to know as opposed to get to the hospital bedside or worse. That's what I'm thinking. What do you reckon to that now?
Yeah, I think that would be awesome for people to start properly talking again. But again, it comes down to lowering your own shield and your guard. And if there's anyone out there that's got their guard up, there will be people around you that you can be honest with and that you can properly trust. In the back of your mind, you'll know who those people are. I knew who the people are that I could trust, really, but I turned away from them because I was scared of losing them by telling them the truth. And again, I refer to honesty a lot because it's helped me, and I think that by being honest, it solves so many of the problems. I had a huge fear of actually wanting to step away from the pack, so step away from the old life and just be isolated, because I felt I'd always be in no man's land. Because if I stepped away from the pack and everything I was doing wrong and was honest about everything, I could lose everything and be on my own. That was a very daunting situation to be in because I didn't want to be on my own. So I always felt very trapped as well, which was part of my downfall, was that I wasn't strong enough to make the decision and make the breakthrough. But again, I refer to honesty is a big, big part of it.
And you've got to look after yourself, because if you don't look after yourself, you're not going to have the bloody energy to look after others, are you?
That's a really good point. And do you know what? I've always been a very generous person from a young age. I've always been very generous. And a giver, a person who gives a lot, needs to know their limits, because a person who takes has no limits. And I think that happens with love as well, and with kindness. You have to also look after yourself, balance your life well, look after number one as well, because then you're able and you're strong enough to help other people when they're in need. So it does impact a lot if you look after yourself, love yourself, as you say.
When you get to a certain age and you've had so many experiences, maybe not so many of exactly the same as what Neil shared, that's a proper massive biblical experience that some people will simply not be able to get their head around, because it's kind of mad, isn't it, to think of it. Do you still get that imposter syndrome sort of thing, like going, I can't believe that I've actually been spoken to and I've been saved? Or are you now just fully like, yeah, because of that, I now owe so much. I need to balance the books. I've got to pay that forward.
I have no doubts whatsoever. I never kind of think, what's happened. I'm seeing myself grow spiritually. I'm seeing various things happen in my life that I now believe God is so involved in. So I have no doubts whatsoever.
That's so refreshing to hear. I felt something from you, man. I felt something quite powerful. And I don't know what I believe in, exactly. And I'm still on the journey of finding that out. But I generally feel like I've got an energy. And people like you give me more energy. You give me more energy, man. It's a really amazing thing, isn't it? Just simply by hanging out with positive people. I came in here, I was a bit tired out, to be honest. I've been yabbering all day, cutting hair all day. What have you been doing today?
I've been in the office all day as well, yeah.
So crunching, paying back to the great man who's your boss and looking after your clients, haven't you?
Absolutely, yeah.
So, but I don't feel tired from that, do you?
I feel like we could go again. I feel like we could have another session with Sam at Bear Walden, I thought.
Have you been in there today?
No, I've got a PT session with him tomorrow morning.
When are you joining back in the big group?
I've just started gymnastics with him, and then we're in there tomorrow morning. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, just building ourselves back in gradually. So yeah, my wife's doing it as well. She's signed up now as well. So
well, Alice was always keen, man. When I first started, she put me to shame. And,
well, the kids are doing it now as well, because the kids are so sporty. And they absolutely love their sports, and they're back involved with Bear Walden as well now. So it's brilliant.
I love Sam to bits and pieces. So,
can I just tell you a quick story about Sam?
Please do.
Quickly? So shortly after I come out of hospital, I had an incident in the school playground where I effectively had a panic attack, and it was horrific. It was really, really overwhelming sense of fear. And Sam was there, and Becky was there, and Alice's mum was there. And I went to pick the kids up from school, was on the floor in the playground, and Sam just saw it out of the corner of his eye. He picked me up, put me over his shoulder, in proper military style, put me in his car, picked the kids up, drove me back to my house, put me upstairs, sat me down, was talking to me, just talking, because I was in a really bad kind of place. And he went to the shop, he cooked for my family, and then stayed upstairs with me, talking to me for about 2 hours. I mean, that guy is just an incredible, incredible man. I just wanted to say that story because I'm so inspired by it. And by him, he's a real inspiration for me.
I totally agree. I love Sam. And he's like that with kindness. So he's stoically kind every single day. And the people that come into his atmosphere, they're better. They're better people. I have my little curveball question.
Okay.
And I dare say you've got lots of stories to tell. I just want you to pick one subject and take the route that you want. Feel totally free. Sex, drugs and rock and roll, my man. What is it to you? Which one?
What? Just choose one of those?
Just choose one of them as a topic. Just my curveball question.
Drugs. So have I got to ask you a question?
No, you don't ask me a question. Basically, I want you to pick one of those, consider it like a topic as such,
okay,
and to just say what instantly comes to your mind. Like, is it a please avoid it? Is it please be aware of it? Sometimes, whatever. If it's sex, it could be whatever you want, whatever you want to promote today on those topics.
So drugs.
Okay, my man.
With drugs, I started smoking weed from the age of probably 13.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a certain stigma about weed where it's only weed, it's only a bit of weed. But it was the gateway that led on to things for me. And I obviously had decisions to make and doors that were open and shutting at different stages of my life. But once you start with drugs, I find it's very, very, very hard to stop. So my advice to anyone out there is if you're ever offered any drug of any description, reject it, because you're so much brighter and so much happier and so much healthier without any other substance. God's made you perfectly fine the way you are. You don't need anything else other than good living, lots of sleep, lots of nutrition, lots of, good, water and energy. You don't need anything else.
Healthy orientation around the keys. Naturally, preferably, don't do it. You mentioned Abba Father. I wrote that down. You said you didn't know what that meant at the time. Can you explain to me what that is? I'm interested.
So I heard Abba Father, and then straight after it, I heard God. So I was unconscious physically, but my soul was still awake. So I heard the words, and where I was thinking about what it meant, God whispered God. So I heard Abba Father, and I almost felt myself thinking about, what's that? And then I heard God. And Abba Father actually means Father, God,
Okay.
Father of the soul, God. I heard teach the lessons as well. So I said, Abba Father, teach the lessons and God. So I'm still understanding that teach the lessons part myself, because I'm like, there's lessons in the Bible. Am I now here? Is my purpose now to teach everyone about my experience, and the lessons is part of God's will.
I totally agree. I do think that that's why you've been brave enough, showed that courage. And I know that you get nervous. We were chatting outside with Howie, and you do find those moments nervous, but there's part of the healing process. And I truly believe that the cure is in conversation. It could be with God. It could just be with your mate, your wife, your mum, your dad. You've got to start talking, and then you're going to find the cure, because they're going to be able to help you know if you need more professional conversation or it's just a chat, and it's just going to keep you going more level in life. I think that you're that part of your journey. I think we've been on the PodBarber, man. You come to share with the audience, and they're gonna feel that sonic positivity that you've been pumping out to them. I think anyone brave enough to pursue a positive life and follow the light as opposed to marinate in their own darkness, you're all good in my book, man. And what you're doing is amazing, inspiring, and I'm massively grateful that you've come on here. I've reached out to you. I've explained what we're trying to do, via the medium of a podcast. In times where I think people are more porous at the moment and they've had an opportunity to reboot, and I think it's important that we share loads of different stories and different tales. Someone asked me, so what is it? And I said, well, I'm a folk storyteller, because I help folk tell their stories.
I think it's fantastic what you're doing, with raising awareness. It's really inspiring, and you're going into places that we need to go to. It's about identifying the issue and trying to put it right. So it's so encouraging, and it's really inspiring, mate.
Thanks, man. Me and Neil here have gone through an emotional conversation, and I physically felt different things. Like, you've opened different bits of me as we've gone through this conversation, and the oxytocin of mine and you looking at each other and allowing this to happen, and the point of what we're trying to do, it feels strong, man. You're flooding yourself with that innate sort of pharmacy that we all have within us. You've got to allow the space, the silence. It's okay to wait. Don't be in a rush, and don't be second guessing it. Half of my interview was written down here. I've barely looked at it because we just got the flow going.
I'd just like to say that with this testimony, it isn't about me. Although this story's about me, this is about Jesus and what Jesus has done in my life. And everybody has access to Jesus. There's support out there with churches and other things that we talk about. But
I think it's clear to say that like Neil is humble with this. You know, yes, he's used his story as a vehicle to give out like hope. And there's relatable issues here. So, you know, if you're stretching out and thinking, actually, do you know what? I've tried this, I've tried that. I'm on a continuum. It's not working for me. We'll try something else. Give it a go. Get up in the morning. You know, like start praying. Start loving yourself. Start thinking about yourself. Start looking after yourself. And perhaps keep a little journal of that and see if that makes you feel better, as opposed to keep pouring into your stress container that's blocked. Unblock it. Look after yourself. Please do that. Neil, I just want to say thank you so much for coming here today. And I'd like to say God bless you and peace, love, and power to your day, man.
God bless you. Thanks a lot, Nick. Really appreciate it.
The PodBarber is a That Media and Design production with Mickey at the mic and Howie at the controls. Just search the PodBarber on social and let's get connected.